Nobody has ever answered this question honestly. Not the priests, not the theologians, not the philosophers who built entire careers around it. They've given you doctrine. They've given you mythology. They've given you comfort dressed up as truth. But Edgar Cayce, a man who spoke from a depth most humans never touch, was asked this question directly. And what came through him wasn't doctrine. It wasn't mythology. It was something that will quietly unravel the way you see reality itself. Stay with me, because the answer isn't what you think, and I'm not going to give it to you yet. First, let's look at what you've been told. Every major religious tradition hands you a version of the same story. There is God, the good, the light, the source of all things, and there is his adversary, the fallen one, the deceiver, the prince of darkness. Two forces, locked in eternal war, and you caught somewhere in the middle. It's a compelling story. It's ancient. It's found in Christianity, in Islam, in Zoroastrianism, in countless mythologies across thousands of years. But here's the question nobody asks out loud in church. If God is truly infinite, if God is truly everything, then where exactly does Satan stand? Outside of infinity? Think about that for a moment, really think about it. Because either God is infinite, or there's room for an opponent. It cannot be both. This is not a theological trick. This is a crack in the foundation, and Cayce saw it. Edgar Cayce gave over 14,000 psychic readings across 4 decades. He spoke while in a deep trance state, a state he himself didn't fully understand. And in those readings, he described a universe that looks almost nothing like the one most of us were taught. No angry God keeping score, no heaven reserved for the doctrinally correct, no cosmic battlefield with 2 generals. Instead, Cayce described something that sounds almost impossibly simple. One source, one consciousness, everything, every soul, every galaxy, every thought you've ever had, an expression of that one consciousness moving through itself. Now hold that image and ask yourself, inside that universe, what happens to Satan? I'm not going to answer that yet, because before I do, there's something you need to understand about what Cayce said happens to souls. According to the readings, every soul is a fragment of that original consciousness, not a creation separate from it, a fragment of it. Born into free will, born into the capacity to choose, and Cayce was very specific about something. He said the soul's journey across many lives, across vast stretches of time, is a journey of learning through choice, not reward and punishment, learning. Every life a classroom, every relationship a curriculum, every moment of suffering or joy a lesson the soul chose at some level to experience. This is where it starts to get uncomfortable, because if the soul learns through choice, then choice requires contrast. Light and shadow, expansion and contraction, movement toward the source, and movement away from it. And that word away, that's the word that begins to answer everything. But we're not there yet. Let me tell you about a reading. A student asked Cayce directly about the nature of evil in the universe. Was it real? Was it a force? Did it have a face? Cayce, even in trance there were pauses, and then said something that has stayed with me. He said that what humans call evil is not a thing in the way a stone is a thing. It is not substance. It is not an independent creation. It is a relationship between a soul and its source. Specifically, the distance a soul chooses to place between itself and that source. Now that sounds almost poetic, almost abstract, but follow it, because this is where the ground starts to shift. Think about what fear does to a person. Real fear, deep fear. The kind that makes you hoard when others are starving. The kind that makes you lie to protect yourself at the cost of someone else. The kind that makes you see every other human being as a threat rather than a reflection. That fear doesn't come from connection. It comes from the feeling of being cut off, alone, separate, isolated in a hostile universe. Cayce would say, that feeling of separation is the root of everything we call evil. Not a monster's choice, a frightened soul's choice, a soul that forgot or refused to remember what it actually is. And here's where the next layer opens. Because Cayce didn't just say souls forget their connection to the source. He said there is a force, a real measurable force in his cosmological framework that pulls in the direction of forgetting. A gravitational current, moving away from unity, away from love, away from the source. And that force has a name. But before I give you that name, before we arrive at the answer you came here for, I need you to understand something that will change how you receive it. Cayce believed, with the full weight of everything that came through in his readings, that you cannot understand what Satan is until you understand what you are. Not what you've been told you are. Not the name your parents gave you, the job you go to, the story you tell about yourself. What you actually are. And what you actually are, according to Cayce, is this: a point of consciousness within an infinite field of consciousness, temporarily housed in a body, temporarily believing in your own separateness, temporarily. That word is doing a lot of work. Because if your separateness is temporary, if it's a chosen experience, not a permanent condition, then the force that makes you believe your separation is real and permanent, that force is the most dangerous thing in your universe. Not because it tortures you, because it deceives you. Now we arrive. Edgar Cayce's answer to the question, does Satan exist, is not yes, and it is not no. It is something far more precise. He said, what you call Satan is the living pattern created by souls choosing separation, consistently, repeatedly across time, until that pattern gains its own momentum. Not a being who rebelled against God in some mythological past, but a direction of will that becomes so entrenched, so repeated, so collectively reinforced across generations and civilizations, that it begins to behave like a force. Like a current in the ocean. You can't hold it in your hand, but if you stop swimming, it will carry you somewhere you didn't choose to go. That current, that accumulated momentum of chosen separation, that is what Cayce meant. And here is the second layer of the answer, the one that will either free you or disturb you. That current runs through you, not because you are evil, because you are a soul with free will living inside a field that contains both directions. Every moment you choose fear over love, that current gets a little stronger. Every moment you choose cruelty over compassion, that current gets a little stronger. Every moment you treat another human being as less than a reflection of the same consciousness you came from, you are not being tempted by Satan. You are generating him. This is the truth that religious institutions have never been entirely comfortable handing to their congregations. Because a Satan that lives outside you can be fought with rituals, with prayers, with institutional belonging, but a Satan that is a direction within your own will, that requires something much harder. That requires you to look at yourself honestly, regularly, without the comfortable distance of blaming an external adversary. To ask, where am I moving away from love today? Where am I choosing the illusion of separation over the reality of connection? Where is my fear making decisions that my soul would not endorse? The soul that can ask those questions, and keep asking them across a lifetime, is doing the only thing that actually matters in Cayce's cosmological framework. Not performing goodness, not following rules out of fear of punishment, but genuinely, consciously turning toward the source. Again and again and again. Not because someone is watching, but because you remember even faintly, even imperfectly, what you actually are. And what you actually are cannot be separated from the light. Not by any force in the universe, only by your own choosing. So does Satan exist. He exists the way a shadow exists. Not as a thing in itself, but as the shape that appears when something turns away from the light. And the moment you turn back, the shadow has nowhere left to stand. If this cracked something open in you, good. That crack is where the light gets in. This channel exists for the souls who are done with easy answers, who are ready to sit with real questions, who want the kind of truth that doesn't just comfort you, it transforms you. Subscribe and we keep going deeper together. The next question is already waiting.